All right, Devo, on November 7th, 2006. Do you remember this date?
I won a tournament.
You did. You took down the holiday bonus tournament at the Commerce Casino.
Yep.
It was $36,000.
It was 30 and change, plus I had to pay for the celebration that night.
Did you? Well, you know, it's not even close to your biggest cash, obviously, but it was one of your earliest wins.
Mm-hmm.
What were your emotions that day?
I was super stoked. I mean, it was shortly after I moved to Vegas. Mm-hmm. I moved here late June, just right at the start of the 2006 World Series, and I moved here, and it had been like a really fun roller coaster of a few months. And we played this tournament, and it was the fifth or the sixth event I played of that holiday bonus series, and I got heads up with John Turner.
Yep, Pearl Jammer.
Yep, and we made a save. So we saved $25,000, and then we played for the change, which was like $5,500, and we agreed that the winner would tip the staff and pay for the celebration that night, because we were both buds and we got to know each other that summer. And so yeah, then after that, his whole crew and my whole crew, we went out and had a good old time.
And you spent all the money. No, I'm just kidding.
I spent a third of it pretty much immediately upon getting home. I bought a motorcycle, and it's
the famous motorcycle.
Yeah, the famous motorcycle is that one. That's where that came from.
It's funny that you played against Pearl Jammer, who's now a respected online and live pro.
Uh-huh.
At the time, were you thinking this is a guy that's probably going to be, you know, a bigger player?
I was pretty cocky then.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to make a save rather than a chop. I just kind of wanted to reduce variance, but I still wanted to play it out. And I actually got really, really, really lucky heads up. He trapped me pretty good with a pair of aces. He just limped the button, and then I raised. Then he called, and then the flop came Queen 8 X, and I had the 9-10, and I bet, and he raised. I'm like, what? He limped the button. How can he have anything good? I'm all in. He's like, I call. I'm like, oh, you have aces. I'm like, I have a straight draw.
Boom.
Queen 8. I have 9-10. Yeah, Jack on the river. So we shipped it, and had a good old time that night. But.
Well, I was going to say, how much confidence did that give you? You know, did that make you feel like I can do this for a living at the time?
No, I had already been full time for over 3 years before that.
Wow.
Yeah, I went full time accidentally in August of 2003. So it was definitely a good boost of confidence in the sense that I'm like, wow, I made this jump of moving to Vegas.
Right.
You know, now I'm playing tournaments, and like, you know, I cashed for like 60 some odd thousand in my first World Series event, and then like August and September I just crushed the cash games out here in Vegas. Like there was a 40-80 limit game that went in the Venetian every day. Yeah. My buddy and I would come in every night about 7 p.m., make sure I got started and play it until it quit.
Wow.
And like we broke the game. Like the game didn't go after October, and him and I took like 20 each out of the game in September. So
I always hear about people breaking the games, and you think it's just like nonsense, but you actually do break games.
We broke all, like the game is, most of the Vegas games are locals driven.
Yeah.
And all those players, we busted them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, here's what we always do. We always go back before poker a little bit. You're born in Arcadia, California.
Arcadia Methodist.
And it's funny because I feel like you have this accent that shouldn't be California. And when I researched this, we're like, what? California? Mm-hmm. Didn't even know. What kind of kid was Devo?
Devo was a nerd. I got straight A's until third grade. When I had my first PE class, and I was a little garapito, a little short, chunky kid. And
yeah?
I got a B in PE because I couldn't run the mile faster than 10 minutes.
Oh, no.
Third grade, or that's fourth grade, actually. Yeah, straight A's all the way through third. Yeah, it was somewhere around 7th grade that I decided that if you were a nerd, you couldn't ever get chicks.
Oh, no.
There was no Superbad or Napoleon Dynamite back then. Everyone didn't like the nerds. And so I decided that I needed to be cool. And so I looked at everyone else who was cool, and they all skateboarded, but I couldn't skateboard. I was a rollerblader. They all snowboarded, and I couldn't snowboard. I was a skier, so I was like the nerd that tried to be cool.
But you had your own thing going on.
Oh yeah, I always had the own thing going on. I was the kid that, I was good at DOS.
Yeah?
Yep, I was one of the first internet kids. I played Trade Wars 2002 on the bulletin boards. And,
wow.
Yeah, played Red Dragon and all those games.
But you were a good kid. You know,
yeah, I was a pretty good kid.
You were a good kid.
Yeah, I was a good kid. I got into Magic like when I was 13 years old. back in like
everyone else
90, 95 or so, 94, 95. Yeah, but I was way before these guys. Like,
you were before all the David Williams magic and all these people, or is that what you're saying?
David started right shortly after I did.
Okay.
But he's remained in the game the whole way. Like, I got in, and then when they kind of went to the modern format that they have today, I freaked out and
Hated it.
thought they were ruining the game. No, I didn't hate it. I thought it was going to kill the values of the cards because they started reprinting old cards that, you know, and I made like my little 13, 14-year-old hustle off of it. I traded Magic cards and I traded baseball cards and all that kind of stuff. And
So no more magic for you these days?
no, they got me hooked on it again this summer. They taught me about drafting, which didn't exist back then, and it's pretty fun. I mean, it's a super fascinating card game, and you know, I like games in general. And,
I think a lot of poker players just like games in general.
yeah, and it's pretty nostalgic for me because like collectible card games were really like the last thing that my father and I did together. Like we played Magic together and we played Star Wars together, and I don't know, it was really neat. Like it's fun getting back into it. And
Yeah, I know it's definitely a sore subject, but you were 17 when your father died.
that's a fact.
He committed suicide, and you've written about this. How much impact did that have on your life at the time?
More than you can imagine. I mean, every bit that you could assume, and more than that. I mean, it still affects me to this day.
Yeah.
It affects my relationships. It affects a lot of things. I really feel like there's a lot of times that I probably should have gone and sought out counseling, and even still to this day, because that's a pretty gnarly thing. Like, especially in the life of a young adolescent male, like. He left at 16 and then committed suicide when I was 17, and like that's the point, you know, stage 4 of Piaget cognitive development. That's where a young male adolescent needs a respected father figure to say, I'm proud of you,
Sure.
I think you're good enough, go forth into the world and do well. And instead of that message, I got the message of, you're on your own, kid.
Yeah.
And fortunately, my dad trained me in entrepreneurship, if you will, like through hustling baseball cards and car parts. Like he used to take me to like, you know, swap meets. And I remember one time I was like 11 or 12 years old, and he did classic Ford restoration, like mostly Mustangs, but he did Falcons and Fairlanes and all those other kind of like 65 to 73 era Fords. And
Wow.
I remember finding this one part as a timing cover for a 289 V8, and it was in this pile of parts, and I go, how much for that? And he goes, $1. I go, you got it. Because I knew that my dad had a job where he needed to replace the timing cover, so I bought this car part for $1 on Sunday, and then the next day we sold it to a customer for $100.
Wow.
So, I mean, he taught me like that whole hustle of buying and selling and that kind of stuff, and he got me into stocks really young, and like, so he taught me how to make money out of nothing, you know. Like Magic conventions, I would go with a stack of cards this big and $50, and I'd leave with a stack that big and $200.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, just through either playing people for cards or money, or trading and getting the better end of it and stuff.
Well,
So
you seem like you had a lot of good things as well.
yeah, and there's a lot of great things. But you know, I probably can't even really describe the depths of how it has affected me, just because I don't know. I can't really understand it. Like, how can you quantify, like, how it's affected you? How can you say...
You just don't know.
Yeah, like, how would my life have been different? I mean, I miss him. I sure wish that, you know, he could have seen me today, because he was a gambler, he was a card player.
Yeah?
You know, and he was totally amateur, but that's where I learned the game and learned to love it. And
Well, what do you think what kind of advice would you give a young person who may be going through a similar situation?